Hello and welcome to the Transfer Show, brought to you by IG Trading and Investments, where we debate the latest deals, links and rumours going on in this January transfer window. As you might be able to guess from the presence of Clive Palmer, Arsenal superfan, we are discussing all things Arsenal today. Welcome back to the show, Clive. How are you?
I'm fine. Yes.
I'm glad to hear it. There's a little bit of nerves in that voice, which I'm sure we'll get into throughout the course of this episode. And David Ornstein, the Athletics transfer guru, is back as well. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm more relaxed.
Good. Well, you have been busy so far today, and we'll get into that in due course. But stick around as well towards the end of the show for our smartest investment of the week, brought to you by IG Trading and Investments. But first, let's get into it. David, busy day for you. Mm-hmm. The news broke this morning. Ethan Nwaneri looks like he's joining Marseille on loan. What was the kind of background to this?
First things to say is that at the time of recording, an agreement has just been reached between Marseille and Arsenal for a straight loan that doesn't include an option to buy. There's a sizable loan fee in there, but that will reduce based on appearances. So it's basically higher if he doesn't play, lower if he does, and all parties will hope that he plays. The thinking behind it was that for this 4 months ahead, Arsenal want Nwaneri to get games, which he's not getting at the moment. Nwaneri will want to be playing, and Marseille see him as ideal for their manager, Roberto De Zerbi, head coach, the position that they've been needing to fill in their team, their fan base, challenging for trophies. Roberto De Zerbi spoke directly to Arteta. Arteta wanted Nwaneri to go to Marseille and to play under De Zerbi. That's how highly he rates De Zerbi and the club and everything that comes with that wonderful part of the world. Nwaneri, to our knowledge, is very attracted by it as well. I think for now, while we're recording this, he's got the Arsenal game to focus on away at Inter Milan in the Champions League. The hope is that he will travel subsequent to that, so maybe on Wednesday. And in my view, it's a solution that suits all parties. There were others who were keen, are keen, until this has been sealed and delivered. You don't know for certain. They included clubs on the continent and also in the Premier League. And there could be some school of thought that says he's going to need time to adapt to France and to Marseille and that unique environment he wouldn't have in the Premier League. For example, he could have just slotted straight in. But I think it's brave. I think it's sensible given Arsenal's resources in that area of the pitch, with Odegaard, with Eze. And it's quite an exciting prospect. You could say, why didn't he stay and try and be part of the Arsenal squad for the remainder of the season that may go on to lift trophies, and the priceless experience that will be. If they get injuries, he may be called upon, but that hasn't happened of late. And secondly, if Arsenal do go on, this is his boyhood club. They don't want him to go anywhere. I presume he doesn't want to go anywhere longer term. They could go on to even greater success in what some would call a maybe even more fluent style of play in the years ahead. And he will see himself as wanting to be part of that. And if that's going to be the case, then maybe sadly, you have to sacrifice this period of time to be ready to hit the ground running in the future instead of potentially not playing in this period. And then you get to next season and you're not quite game ready. And so I do see both sides of the coin. And I think this is a situation that probably suits all parties. They'll cover his wages, I'm sure, at Marseille. And yeah, Ethan Nwaneri to Marseille is getting closer to completion.
Absolutely. And it feels like Arsenal haven't taken that big a risk, given he's playing in a different league. He's playing, in the Champions League, of course, hopefully going forward. They've got Liverpool tomorrow night. But long-term won't be directly impacting Arsenal's chances of trophies this season, you wouldn't have thought. But Clive, David mentioned both sides of the coin there. Where do you fall down on this move as an Arsenal fan? Are you just happy that he's going to get some regular game time?
I'm happy he's playing, but you have to think about he's prioritising development. And I think he's from last year when he was a 17-year-old right winger of need, he's now an 18-year-old interior midfielder, and he's not getting that development time. And so with De Zerbi, the way he builds up, the way he approaches the game, we all know about his central build-up now. Those players in the interior need to have a good first touch, be highly technical, to spin the ball into wide areas. He's perfect for that. The environment at Marseille, I've never been there, but I've seen it. And so that whole big club environment will be good, playing under pressure with that crowd. It's all about his personal development. I think it's a fantastic thing to do. There's no point sitting behind the bench in a big coat when everyone else is playing. And senior professionals like Kai Havertz, Jesus, Marino, they're all back in the area where you want to play. And so go and play, develop, build your game. I think he's priceless. And I'm so glad that he's getting this move to that manager, and it's been supported by the club. So it feels very positive.
And there's great players to learn from as well. In Aubameyang as well, former Arsenal player. Igor Paixão has made a great impact there since joining from Feyenoord as well. Let's talk about current events and results at Arsenal though, Clive, because we've mentioned some nerves about potentially this transfer, but is there any nerves in the Arsenal camp at the moment? Obviously, you're 7 points clear, extended that lead at the weekend, but 2 consecutive 0-0 draws for the first time since 2012. City play before you this weekend. It could only be a 4-point gap by the time you play United. How are you feeling title race-wise?
Any nerves? I barely slept for about a month. And so I think it's just a period that we're going through. We haven't done this for a long time. Football has changed, the whole environment and microscopic environment around the game has changed. We're so much more informed about how the team is playing, where it's not going so well. And we take that information on board. When you look at it cold, we are 7 points ahead and we are having players returning from injury. We've got a very strong defensive, desire through the team. Off the ball, we're really strong. And so that's allowed us to really stabilise as a team. When, for example, Manchester City don't play well, they lose. When we don't play well, we might draw or win, and people discuss our play style. So we have a really high floor in the group, and now we have less risk around injuries, for example. We can cover people, we can rest people. Bukayo Saka doesn't have to start every game, although we'd like him to. As soon as he doesn't, we think, why didn't he start? But we don't want to see him with a 4-month hamstring again in the critical part of the season, which happened last year and potentially really impacted us late in the Champions League. And so we've learned those lessons. So now, as I think the team and the club feel quite secure in what they're doing, I think the players are more mature than the fan base, if I'm honest with you, including myself, because we haven't done this for a long time and we're desperate to get over the line. There seems to be a strategy, and David would know this, that we've gone all in this year. We've kept people around, we've re-signed contracts, we've got the core group there, we've gone all in to really lift this club from being maybe a top 8 in Europe to be a top 3 and to be a top 1 in the Premier League. So we just need to get over the line. And once we do, you'll look around at this squad and say there's a core group there, all signed, and this could continue. Then it becomes about how we supplement that going forward.
For sure. I think if Arteta could have designed a position to be in mid-January, 7 points clear in the league, through in the FA Cup, an advantage in the Carabao Cup semi-finals and top of the Champions League, this would be his dream, but it's just about, as you say, finishing it off now. I mean, David, Clive mentions there some of the forwards and maybe some struggles for a little bit of form. There is a situation sort of in 2027 with Gabriel Jesus and Trossard and Martinelli out of contract. Have you got any early indications as it stands right now about which of those players Arsenal might want to retain, maybe all of them?
Well, I think there's so much to play for between now and the end of the season that won't be at the forefront of their mind. They're all critical players right now. I say Jesus less so, but he has a prominent role to play as Arsenal sort of hone in on potentially multiple pieces of silverware. Trossard has been a revelation since signing from Brighton, and they've tweaked his contract as they've gone. He's an older player. There's obviously been links with Saudi Arabia and other places along the way, but his importance to Arteta has been clear from the amount of game time he's received, and he has delivered in important matches and scenarios that have been worth their weight in gold. I would say Martinelli has maybe come to the boil this season in a way that people didn't expect, impacting off the bench away in the Champions League in particular, and showing in certain environments against certain opposition how he can be effective from the start. I think a lot of people were talking about a potential departure, and myself included on here, in terms of making way for Arsenal to potentially bring in a high-profile left-sided player. And he's largely responded to the challenge and plays a key role for Arsenal in what they do. And it wouldn't surprise me, in particular with him and his age profile, if there was a new contract at some point, maybe more so than a Trossard, just judging where they are on their career trajectory, That said, you've always got to remember that somebody like Martinelli would be an asset because of his age and his qualities. And no doubt there are clubs that would look at him very seriously if he was to become available. Even if Arsenal were looking to cash in on somebody like that, it doesn't mean they won't renew his contract to preserve his value. Jesus is a much more difficult situation. As he was coming back from injury, I think he was one they might have looked at letting go in January to maybe raise some money, to release some budget on the wage bill, and also take an opportunity for him to maybe go back to Brazil, or just to last chance to raise some revenue for him. But he's contributed and he's turned to by Arteta. And so again, I almost think, apart from, say, a Nwaneri going out on loan to get game time, it's kind of like all hands to the pump at this point in time. Yes, they've added depth to their squad, but they've needed it because of the injuries. And so Arsenal have been extremely sophisticated in their renewals in recent years. And right now, they're probably prioritising ones that are at the top of the agenda, like a Saka, which I've reported on recently. There's an agreement in place there. But those that are not, right at the forefront of thinking can probably wait till maybe summertime and beyond. That said, Andrea Berto appears to be across all of this stuff. He's made a significant impact since he arrived in the spring as their new sporting director. And the thing is, there's so much to play for that futures may be determined by the outcome of these competitions. And we extend that to Arteta, who's under contract until the same point as those players, 2027. And, what will happen if they succeed? Will he look to go on to try and build a dynasty of success? If they don't succeed, will he see it as maybe time to move on? I don't know. There's a lot that needs to be decided. And so in terms of those contracts, there will come a time and a place, but I'm not sure that's right now.
That's interesting. I hadn't factored that in about Arteta. I hadn't realised that. That's a fascinating overall situation behind the scenes as well. Clive, let's talk about the summer signings in particular, particularly the major ones. Your Madueke, Zubimendi, Gyokeres, and Eze. How would you assess their start to life as Arsenal players?
I'd go through them one by one.
Yeah,
So Eze, I think they've all had good periods. Basically, that's the summary version. Eze's had a really good period where Odegaard wasn't playing. I think he's had some issues, maybe potentially off the ball, and he's been punished for it, it feels like. But I think his qualities are going to come to the fore as the season goes on. His ability to score goals is going to be important as the pressure comes on. I think we can't just rely on set pieces for that first goal. So people like Eze, I think the game's going to come back to them. Madueke, I think, has done really well from a Saka perspective. And I think he's got potential to play on the left-hand side as well. We haven't really seen a lot of that at the moment because we've got left-sided players fit. But I do like his profile. I think the way football is going, those wide areas, having different people do different jobs is very important. And he's different to Saka. He's far more athletic, longer sprints, and very one-dimensional on attacking his defender. So I do like his profile in contrast. Gyokeres now has been a little bit of a struggle where he started slow, came to a level, had a great game at Burnley.
That injury in that Burnley game.
I don't know what it was. What was it? Because since he's come back, I think I'm quicker than him, right? So and so that's not a good look, right? So he's come back and he's took time to build up again. He had a good game at Chelsea, but I asked myself, am I squinting to see his level? But it's a strange one on this one because I was in Lisbon when Arsenal played Sporting and I saw him with my own eyes and he was a lot more quicker. He was really aggressive, really relentless in his running. And so once you see something, you can't remove it from your mind. So I'm just hoping that player comes back. Do
you think rotation in some ways might help him?
It might do, but he doesn't quite look as punchy as he did back then. And when you play against a player, you can see them play well. You feel their presence. And I really felt his presence in that game. So I can't ignore it. Once I've seen it, I can't say to people, it's not there. I just think a story may come out with him over time that maybe due to the injury of Havertz and Jesus, we have maybe played him and overplayed him, because we've had to. When they come back, maybe we'll see a different player.
David, is there any concern within the club about Gyokeres' sluggish start or sluggish recent form in particular?
Firstly, I think that was one of the most balanced and insightful analysis that I've seen, because social media seems awash with poison around players like Gyokeres and others at other clubs and managers, and it's not healthy. So that was really refreshing. Naturally, they will want more from him, even if he was playing better than he is. And they signed him for his goals and more. And yeah, we haven't seen as many of the goals so far. Relatively early days. Clive will remember that Arsene Wenger always used to say, you've got to give a new signing 6 months. They don't even get 6 days or weeks now to make their impact before the world judges them. He didn't really have a pre-season. Arteta has pointed that out. It was a messy transfer from Sporting to Arsenal. And then just as he was getting going, as you guys say, picked up the injury. He's learning a completely different system, team. They are trying to adapt to him because they didn't play to a striker like him previously. I'm not here to defend or endorse anybody, but you can see there are moments where he has contributed significantly with a relatively small number of goals, but also in opening the spaces for others, which has been spoken and written about in great depth. Moments where he hasn't done so well too. I don't think it's as dramatic and as worthy of the demonisation that we're seeing in some quarters. The fact that Arsenal are 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and they are top of the Champions League, and they are through in the domestic cup competitions, suggests that it's working. Mikel Arteta picking him, now that the players like Jesus and Havertz are fit, still as the starting striker, and that's a person who knows a lot more than any of us, suggests that he is satisfied, and to answer your specific question, that on the whole, the club are. Now, we don't know internally how well they think it's gelling right now, how well they think it will into the future. The players who have come out and spoken, I remember Declan Rice recently and Jesus in the last couple of days, know far better than us. So, of course, it's not ideal right now. Could it be better? Yep. Is it going to be better? I would suspect so. Do people need to calm down? Definitely. Name me some strikers who are out there who Arsenal were in the mix for that they should have signed ahead of him. It hasn't started so well yet for Sesko. He's had his moments.
Maybe
but
Ekitike?
Ekitike, Arsenal were not in the mix for. He was a striker who moved in the summer, and you could say Arsenal should have gone in for him, but that's hindsight. We don't know if he would have come to Arsenal. We don't know where Arsenal were in that pecking order. We don't know if Arsenal were prepared or able to commit the finance that Liverpool did, which was higher than the Gyokeres fee. There are so many factors in this. It's not as binary as people make out. There are struggles for Liam Delap. Voltemade has had his moments and had some less good moments. So I just think it's a bit early to form judgment. I also think there is a part of us that needs to give patience to all of these players and of fans who need to get behind. Actually, when you saw his performance at Chelsea, he was being roared on by the Arsenal travelling support. So we've got to be careful to delineate between sort of social media and a lot of the mainstream and wider media coverage compared to those that are working with him and watching him regularly. And I think the overall picture is one of Arsenal can improve as a whole. Their style of play can improve. Where the goals are coming from can improve. Certain decisions around substitutions. People have scrutinised Martin Odegaard. He can improve. A number of players can improve. Gyokeres is amongst them. And I wouldn't be so downbeat if I was an Arsenal supporter. And it doesn't seem like the club and Mikel Arteta are, and they know more than us.
I think it's a fair point, especially given the most nailed-on transfer success of the summer in the striking department felt like Alexander Isak, commonly considered last year, whether it was fair or not, the best striker in the Premier League, which maybe was recency bias given the fact that Erling Haaland was still playing in the league. But look how badly that transfer's gone these very early days, of course. It does feel like maybe, every striker needs to be cut a little bit more slack. Clive, before we get into your sort of dream transfers for 2026 as a whole, this January, would you like to see Arteta given any more tools, or are you quite happy with the squad as it is?
Well, one name I didn't mention in the last question was Zubimendi, actually, because I think he's been transformational and he's shown how to come into a league and settle down, and I think he's changed how we play, and I think he's changed maybe the roles of others. I think having a double pivot, for example, has maybe lessen Miles' impact into the team, because that's where he would normally play with a single 6 system. I think it's made Odegaard and Rice think about their role because he's been so good. And he's such an all-round player, and I think he's really the future of a midfielder. Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Can he play high? Can he play low? Can he take first phase? He can do all of that, and he can score. And that maybe is the way forward. So looking at the squad as a whole, I think we've got a very big squad at the moment, a squad coming back to health. When I'm thinking forward, I'm thinking about, you're going to laugh at me, but defenders are really high usage players now. If you look at the game, how many touches they have, they are part of our build-up now. They do a lot of things. They're pushing up the pitch. They're left one-on-one. I think we always looked at wingers, for example, and think that's a attritional position, a high sprint position. But I think we're going to start to see more teams do what Arsenal have done and have 8 defenders for 4 positions, because those are the players that stabilise your team. And stability is probably our trick at the moment. So I'm happy with the squad. There are things I want to talk about later, but happy with the squad right now, because realistically, January is not the time for us to build.
Fair enough. We'll get onto your dream targets in just a second. David, just quickly on the potential sort of viewpoint of Arsenal around Semenyo and Guehi going to Man City. Is there any nerves behind the scenes at Arsenal? Do you think they could respond this month?
Well, I expect Manchester City to come on strong in the title race. Everybody does. But Arsenal have a good cushion, 7 points. That will require a couple of defeats for Arsenal and their rivals to be pretty much unblemished. So they're firm favourites for the title. They were never planning to do business this month. They did a huge amount, everything that they wanted to my knowledge, last summer at that phase of the build under Arteta and Berta. You never know with these windows and the biggest clubs. You often see towards the end they pick up a young player for the future. But in terms of senior recruitment, no, I don't know where Arsenal would look, whether they would have the resources, the capacity from a squad, space and financial, salary and PSR perspective when people are back fit and we get to the end of the window. I think they're really well stocked in all departments. Of course, they can't suffer loads more injuries. But their gaze will be on the summer. Yes, they came into the Marc Guehi conversation, but that was unrealistic for this month. It would have been more realistic for the summer when, I don't know, perhaps there's a departure and a bit of a reshuffle in that department. And we saw that last summer with the departure of Kivior and the arrival of Hincapié. Arsenal are prepared to trade now in a way that maybe they weren't so much before. But that ship has sailed on Guehi. Maybe they look for that position. Maybe they target others. It's going to be really interesting to see if Arsenal raise some money from a sale or two in the summer, because they haven't done that to spectacular effect in recent times, and after all the spending, they're going to need to. So there will be areas whether a midfielder is added, because they've been linked with a couple, especially in the younger bracket. Let's see what happens. But no, I don't expect Arsenal to really have much activity at all. These clips will always be replayed when they go and sign somebody on deadline day and there's a loan or something like that. But I'm not expecting anything as things stand.
Nothing major. Okay. Clive, looking ahead to the whole year, David's mentioned a few positions you might look at. Have you got any names that you'd love Arsenal to look at some stage in 2026?
Yes, I always look around our competitive landscape. And so Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City, they are dropping their age profile in their squad. You almost got to predict. You've got to say, okay, I need to manage this. There's a window that we've got contractually right now where we've got all our best players signed up for 3 to 5 years. So we're comfortable for the next 2 to 3, 5 years. But you need to underpin them. And I'm looking at younger players actually. And so there are players in centre midfield. There's one young player coming out of France called Ayoub Biadi. I can't stop looking at him. I just think, again, the future where the game is going, he can play in multiple positions. I know he's young, but he's a prodigy, really. And if you look at our age profile of our centre mids, behind the ball players, I think there's room there for something ahead. The left wing has been, not say a problem, but a debate, shall we say, until maybe Trossard and Calafiori linking this year. We brought Eze in, but is he a left? Is he a midfielder? Is he a true 10? So the reason why everyone looks at Arsenal, looks at Saka and says, okay, you're a good player. When you get the ball in exposed spaces, everyone's looking at your decision making. and our decision making from the right is better than from the left. And so I'm looking at a player like Kenan Yildiz, and I look at how he plays and how he makes decisions from those wide areas under pressure. And I think that's a player that we could very much do with if we do some training to create space. And there's one more dream signing. I don't want to say
you can dream.
And again, when you see a player play against you, you feel their presence. And Julian Alvarez played against us this year, and I couldn't find him from my seat. He was popping up everywhere, and I thought, what a player you are. I know that's expensive, and I'm not sure where he'll fit, but you can't miss quality, and I think that player would be really good.
That's really interesting as well, because I think he's supposedly Barcelona's top target to replace Lewandowski is the kind of chat you see online at least, but we do have a transfer expert here. Is that what you hear as well?
I was just going to chime in on Alvarez because Arsenal were considering him a little bit in the last market, the summer. His name came up and it's since been reported, and you could see that sort of player coming into Arsenal. I think there is maybe scope if there's going to be some outward manoeuvring, loan or permanent, then there is definitely scope for an arrival. I think right back is a really interesting area for Arsenal that's probably been on their long-term agenda. And it's zero disrespect to Ben White, Timber. They can both play in different positions. They can both be part of the depth of squad or starters, but they've both, White more recently, Timber historically, had injury problems, and it has occasionally left Arsenal short in that area. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're looking around there. Names, I don't know. You see all sorts floated around. That and maybe adding another central midfielder for the depth. The Norgard signing appears to have been sensible, but you don't know how long that will continue, whether you need more resources in that area of the field. But yeah, I'm along the same lines as Clive. That attacker, maybe a right back and a midfielder.
I think Clive's suggestion of Buadi is really interesting as well. I was actually looking at him yesterday, and everyone knows that in these really congested midfield zones that we've got all across Europe, we always have in football, that dribbling is so highly rated, someone that can break the lines, ease away from opponents. There's only 2 midfielders in the entirety of Europe that have completed more dribbles at a higher percentage than Buadi, and he's only a teenager. And one of those is Pedri. So he's in pretty elite company already. And playing for Lille, you wouldn't have thought that the fee would be astronomical as well. So definitely one to keep an eye on there as well. But guys, to finish the show, we're going to wrap up with our smartest investment of the week, brought to you by IG Trading and Investments. This is our favourite completed deal or current rumour going on that we particularly like the look of. David, what's your favourite sort of rumour or completed deal that's gone on recently?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to start on Clive.
We can go to Clive first.
Yeah,
go to Clive. Give me some thinking time.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts about the right back as well, by the way.
Nice.
And,
Feel free to dive in.
Throw it in.
Because it links into my potential deal that I like. Not for Arsenal, but Jeremy Jacquet potentially going to Chelsea is an outstanding player, and I hope they don't get him. But if they do, I'm wondering if Josh Ashipong could come out of Chelsea, because I think his potential at right back is quite significant. Again, it's about the age profile. I think Jacquet is a really good player. So if Chelsea get him, I sort of understand that deal, very much understand this deal. Another player that's come into my mind recently, and only recently, but it's one I'm going to be watching going forward, is a young player playing for Everton called Harrison Armstrong. And I watched his performance at the weekend, and then I've looked back. They've got a player there, without a doubt, as a centre midfielder that makes the right decisions, looks after the ball, quite athletic. And sometimes we look abroad very, very quickly without realising what we have on our own shores. He's come for the Championship, played for Derby, I think it was. Look out for that one, Dougie. He's going to be a very good player.
I like it. And just quickly on Achimpong, would that be someone that you would like at Arsenal potentially?
I would. Again, I don't know why I'm thinking younger so much. But I can potentially see a period where Ben White's going to say, I want to play a little bit more and make my career somewhere else. Maybe eventually come back into central role as he ages. But a younger player on the right-hand side, because David's right, Timber is playing a lot of football, Ben White's playing a lot of football, and they always feel on the edge of an injury to me. So a younger player in there would be good.
And Chelsea and Arsenal continuing that transfer relationship as well, which is so well-trodden both ways. David, any favourite move?
The thinking time was priceless. So I've got a couple.
Oh, nice.
I'll try and rattle through them. I'm interested by Lorenzo Luca of Napoli. He is said to be close to a move to Nottingham Forest. Chris Wood suffering an injury, undergoing surgery. They needed an aerial presence. They may still look to bring in Taremi in addition before the end of the market. Let's see what happens with Olympiakos' Champions League campaign. But in the meantime, they're progressing on Luca. It's possible they do both of them. And Luca has that kind of stature, that background. He's a decent age, I think 25, 26, and ticks a lot of boxes. And if they manage to pull that off, I think it'd be quite exciting for Forest. And then I reported in the Athletic deal sheet this morning that Brighton have had a couple of offers turned down for a young player, Charlton, on loan at Colchester, a striker called Mika Mbik, 19 years old, and they've got up to about £3.5 million, and they're considering going back in again. Charlton see him as capable of leading the line for them into the future, whether it be in the Premier League, the Championship, or even League One. Certainly they won't hope it's that. And Brighton won't be looking at him unless he's potentially the real deal. They're so smart in their recruitment, and that makes me highlight him. And the reason I've gone left field is because last week I think I did Alexander Toth.
You did,
and
which was completed.
On this very day, it's been announced as a signing for Bournemouth, and he's a really intriguing prospect. So let's keep it sort of bit diverse.
Yeah, the success rate is going through the roof. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant stuff. I was tempted to talk about Romano Schmid, who's a Werder Bremen number 10, who was being loosely linked with Leeds, but I was trying to do some digging before we started recording, and that move doesn't look like it's going to happen, although maybe there's always, potential of a change at the 11th hour. Instead, I want to talk about a deal that's already been completed, and it's Jack Harrison joining Fiorentina on loan. Now, Fiorentina had a really terrible start to the year. They were bottom of Serie A at Christmas time. They didn't win any of their first 12 games of the season, but they're now unbeaten in their last 4. I think they've won 3 of their last 6, and they're now out of the Serie A relegation zone. Jack Harrison hasn't been playing at Leeds at all this season. It doesn't feel like Daniel Farke really trusts him this year. He's obviously spent a couple of years on loan at Everton with kind of varying success throughout that. But I think I've always thought that this is a guy with excellent delivery from wide. And there's a number of forwards at Fiorentina, not least Moise Kean, who was one of Serie A's top scorers last year, who really thrive off balls into the box. So Jack Harrison going from not playing at Leeds to going to live in Florence in a side that are getting some momentum going, playing alongside Edin Dzeko potentially, David De Gea in goal. I just think it's a really nice move for Jack Harrison. So that is my favourite Smartest Investment of the Week, brought to you by IG Trading and Investments. But that is another show for this week. Massive thanks to Clive Palmer for coming on.
Thank you.
And to David Ornstein.
A pleasure.
And we'll catch you next week. Thanks so much for watching.